right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the special council meeting to order. We have approval of the agenda here. I understand that councillors wanted to add to the special meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your microphone, please.
Through you, Your Worship, I would like Lot A added for discussion and recommendations, please.
Okay, so that'll follow under item 8. Lot A update. And our corporate officer has distributed some additional information for everyone. So approval of the agenda, please, with the new business and the additional information. Moved by Councillor Pearson.
Can I make a comment now?
Can I have that as seconded? Seconded by Councillor Loggins. Councillor Pearson.
Okay, could we...
Microphone.
Sorry. Could we change the agenda just
Okay.
so that we have Staff Sergeant go... I would suggest 6.1 or 6.1 and then 7.1.
Sure.
So, or 7.1 and 6.1, and then follow the normal process from there. How would that be?
So meaning to start with 6.1, then 7.1.
Yeah, either
and
or,
then
whatever
4.1.
one sort of is appropriate, because I think that if that will get the Staff Sergeant out of here as fast as possible.
Okay, so we will make that change, and I see staff had put it on there as well, so good. Okay, is the seconder content with that, Councillor Loggins? Okay, very good. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Welcome, Staff Sergeant MacArthur. We have you on deck for 6.1 RCMP accommodation costs, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm not sure exactly what that is.
It was a request to approve $500 from the RCMP job budget to cover the cost of an outdoor grill for community public education events as well as staff use.
Okay, thank you. I didn't expect it to be under accommodation costs, but yeah, I was hoping to pay for this out of my own budget, but I've researched it right, left, and center, and the Treasury Board rules, which I operate under, are very strict, and we cannot buy a barbecue in any circumstances. So that's what I'm looking to do, is buy a barbecue, and it's not for the use of members making lunches, although I'm sure it would see some of that activity. Our primary purpose is for activities like open houses, volunteer appreciation night, when we have the volunteers from the Cops for Cancer sorting cans in the back to be able to do barbecues. The purpose in purchasing this is public relations primarily, and I can't buy it because of our rules.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you for that, Staff Sergeant MacArthur, and I would make a motion that we allow $500 out of our budget from council contingency, I guess, is where us come from there. So I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Councillor Parkinson?
I just have a question. What does for accommodation costs actually mean?
That's not actually my language.
Okay,
in
not
there.
mine
That's why
either.
I was confused too, so
Okay.
I'm not sure. But
Through Your Worship. I have no idea what it means.
So I think it just has to be, it says here, the District of Sault pays 100% of the accommodation costs related to our RCMP contract. This includes furniture and equipment. Recent items was the chairs. And these sorts of things are difficult for detachment to procure directly, and therefore we have to do this way. But that's why it's that reason. So it's not so that you use it as accommodation. It's just that's the terminology used by that.
I'd like to take credit for that, but I think that was Mr. Blackhall that
Yes, it was.
craftily wrote that up.
Okay. Anything further from our... No, she's just agreeing with what I said. So anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. You have your barbecue.
That's good news. Thanks very much. And Your Worship, I guess I'm not on the agenda for an update, which is why I thought primarily I was appearing. I am?
Yep, you are.
Okay.
Next item, 7.1, RCMP update.
This is fantastic. I should come better prepared next time. And I was going to be really brief and not give you the details I usually do in a quarterly report. But as you know, our strength with our addition last September of one member is at 16. We have presently 2 vacancies, which is from Constable Moore transferring to Yellowknife. Constable Miller is just actually in his last few shifts, and he'll be to Sydney. We do have one recruit filling one of our previous vacancies. That's Constable Naomi Good, and she is with Constable Fromm. But with one person who's just returned from the interior helping out with the fires, we were operating with 13. So along with summer leave, which has been curtailed because of the emergency declaration, but any pre-approved summer leave is still being taken. So we've been really scraping to get by, but managing just fine thanks to the flexibility of our membership. Presently, we're sitting at a file load which is not significantly different than last year in both volume and the makeup of the calls. So I won't go into detail on that. One positive thing, one of many, but I'm not going to go on, is just the job that Constable Sam Haldane is doing with our Neighborhood Watch program, which I think you're all very familiar with, but it is a program, proactive program to help us bind neighborhoods together and get them, operating a little more strategically at preventing crime. So we have 3 up and operating right now, and another 4 being organized, and I think in the near future that we'll have 7 in total operating and more on the go. So that's been a good news story, and that's all I had in case there were any questions.
Councillor Pearson?
Yes, thank you for your report, Staff Sergeant. Just a question in general. With the Premier now being in our area on an ongoing basis, does that increase your workload? I know that on Canada Day that you had some extra duty. Does that increase the detachment's workload? And is there any relief from the province? I guess would be my big question.
I don't think, Your Worship, that actually will increase our workload. The issue right then was that he was a Premier designate, and there was some delay until actually he's sworn in. I'm not sure why that would be. But we pointed it out early to our command structure, and then they asked for a brief operational plan, so we just covered it. It was really a unique situation, so I don't think it will. It might be the odd time. He has his own bodyguard group now as the Premier, who will come with him, and it might be the odd time that we do a little bit of scene security, and there is a separate collator that pays all the expenses for that. So I expect it to be quite minimal. Yeah, but it's a good question, that's for sure.
Other questions for the Staff Sergeant? Go ahead, Councillor Casper.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. MacArthur, but I just was curious as to whether or not there's some provision for the district and the detachment to give us some assistance in dealing with parking violations or people not obeying our traffic signs or our property signs or parking signs, especially on the street and also on private lots that we're leasing. So is there some way that we could have a discussion about that? Would you give us some advice on that?
I'd gladly enter in a discussion about that, and I would say that right now, especially with the resources we have, we're pretty much fully engaged with our duties with the criminal code and other assistance type files. We do work with your bylaw officer, Officer Mills, quite a bit on these things, and especially where these things that look like simple parking complaints actually have a history, and the parties are getting a little bit heated, so we do go along on those, but I'd say straight parking complaints and those kind of things would be an expansion of our duties that we're really not prepared to absorb right now as far as our resources. But I'd be happy to talk at length about that and any other kind of bylaw enforcement issues that you want to chat about.
Okay, great, thank you.
For myself, AIDS Vancouver Island is hosting a community forum out here in Souk next week, basically to address the opioid crisis. Mm-hmm. It's next Tuesday at 7 at the community hall, and there's going to be doing some harm reduction training and the like with other first responders attending. I'm just wondering if at all possible, if a member may be available to attend. I'm not part of the organizing of this, so I don't know what the forum looks like, but it may be helpful just to have a sense of what our situation is like, number of incidents, that sort of thing, because I know it has touched our community. We're not immune to this situation, most certainly. So any sort of feedback that may be offered, I think, would be very valuable at the event. I know that everyone's busy,
No,
but it is
I think it's a good point, and we have been touched by that epidemic here. Of course, we're not immune to it, and continue to be. So I'll either attend that myself or have one of my supervisors go.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Anything else for the staff sergeant? We thank you very much for attending this evening. We certainly know that yourself, your members are very busy, so thank you very much for all the work that you're doing and keeping us safe. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Okay, so moving on into the agenda, that brings us to our item 4.1. We have a delegation this evening from Mr. Michael Volk. If you could please come forward, sir, and still normal procedures apply, so you have 5 minutes for your delegation this evening. And thank you for sending us some materials in advance.
Good afternoon / evening. I have prepared you've got a DP amendment that I submitted back on July 4th, which has to do with the stop work order that we received at Viewpoints Estates. I've appeared before council a few times now, but never officially as representative for that project, and it's been going very well up until this little glitch that we ran into due to our old development permit. Staff, I have to commend, was very helpful and met us on site right away to try and resolve the issue, and we got the materials they requested into them immediately. Unfortunately, that did not resolve in the lifting of this. No problem. That's okay. That didn't result in the lifting of the stop work in one area of the site. So I'll go through it with you here on this PowerPoint presentation that I've made. It was kind of made last minute, so I did what I could. Unfortunately, my environmental consultant has just been recently married, Thomas Roy. I'm sure you all know him. And he was on vacation in Halifax. I said I submitted this DP application back on the 4th, and unfortunately this meeting wasn't on the agenda, so staff hasn't had a report put together. But this basically shuts down our entire site. And so it's very important that I at least try to talk with you guys and make this presentation as quickly as I can. And hopefully there's an opportunity for council to make a motion during regular council to remove clause or amend clause 4.D out of the development permit application dated July 3rd, submitted on the 4th, which would allow us to proceed. So I hope I know how to work this. Let's turn it on. There we go. All right, DP amendment, Viewpoint Estates. Can everybody see? Oh, can you guys see? Or is it on your iPads? Oh, okay. It just shows the site. It's 58 acres, including the pieces that we're purchasing off of the Clark. Oh, by the way, there is a rezoning application also been submitted now. I submitted a draft application, but a rezoning application 2 weeks ago. And submitted the formal application over a week ago now. So there's the site located in Souk, overlooking the water in the Souk Basin. Why isn't this working? Push the button. Oh, there we go. Everybody knows the Spiritwood site. Great location just up from Grant Road. Move forward. Okay, so the first page is the letter that we received, which was indicating that we had worked or been doing work in an area that was a non-disturbance area based on the CD9 zone. The next slide is the cease work order, and it has a list of conditions. We've met all of the conditions on this letter, which was we had done all of them already, aside from putting up the $50,000 bond for protection of the natural environment. We've prepared and submitted a park servicing agreement and an agreement to to look after the natural state of parkland. So in other words, if we go into an area and we damage it, we can revegetate it. The city can revegetate it. The area in question is shown here. It's about a quarter acre of the site in front of where those two people are standing. We stripped it down to rock, and we're just about to start well, we actually did place some rock a few days after this. This was before we got the stop work. We started placing rock and put about a 4-foot course of rock in with the cooperation of the neighbor, Brenda and Tom Warren are the neighbors directly beside the project. We've been very communicative with them, and they've been excellent to work with. And as a matter of fact, I think Brenda's called in because she's upset because we're not working anymore there. So what this is all about is there's a park area. I'll skip forward here 2 slides. The area, well, the arrows point to an area in red. That red area was with the CD9 zone supposed to eventually be dedicated as parkland as an amenity. And we didn't agree with that plan. We were told by our legal counsel that it was an amenity that, because we didn't meet the base density for the subdivision with our new zoning, or with our new plan and layout, the amenity, theoretically, we would be owed compensation from the municipality because a public use as an amenity cannot be charged as an amenity. There has to be compensation.
Sorry, can you come a bit closer to the microphone?
Yep. Anyway, so we were told by our lawyer, who we brought to a meeting, and we brought him to the meeting so that these complex issues with this very complex zoning, CD9, could be understood, like a traveling legal opinion, as it were. And so John explained to staff the complications with the zoning. And it was in that report, and for some reason it was removed, the letter. I do have it on here from Cox Taylor, which just breaks down what the problems are with the CD9 zone and why we have to rezone the property.
Okay, could I just get a motion from council, because we've gone over time, just to allow you to continue. So moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This presentation isn't much longer than this, so you know it's not endless. Anyway, so we went into this area that the DP dated 2012 says is a non-disturbance area. It has been reviewed by Cascadia, and there's no in the letter that is in the package says that there's no there's no unique species and nothing that can't be replaced and remediated. So I spoke to Thomas today in Halifax. He couldn't get a letter out to me for this meeting. So I would suggest that if council does agree to allow us to go into this area, well, we already went into the area, to, in other words, fix it and put it back together like we'd like to, that it would be subject to getting a letter from Thomas that supports what we're doing. And he said he doesn't have a problem doing that. He just couldn't get it to us today. The other letter covers the majority of the area in question, but not the exact boundaries specifically. So that would be a condition. This slide shows the 3 different ways that we can dedicate this terraced parkland. So if you can imagine, you come into the, I'll just point because it's easier. You have a trailhead here, and it comes in 6 meters wide. It'll be fenced on one side, and the black chain link fence all the way along. It'll be all 4 feet tall. You go up some stairs, and you're starting going into the park. And then it's terraced with about 4 feet back there. And every time you go through another lot, it picks up another wall. And so you'll come along here, and then we can either dedicate it as dedicated parkland, terrace is common park, dedicate it as private land and have a strip park, or we can have it as all private land and have an easement. So whatever the term wants the first name is like. On the park dedication, I'll show you on the other side, it's 26%. So there's lots of extra work. And this application, 36 units. Whereas opposed, and with maximum density with 21 duplexes that we have would be 156 or so. Spearwood Estates is 448 maximum density. So it's a very significant downzone that we're looking for. Now, obviously, this development permit application is not a downzone. It's simply saying, can we go in and do this? The rezoning application has been submitted, and that is our intent. Yeah, so that explains the park dedication and the density. So next. Now, this would be nice if it worked. Oh, thank you. Okay. That's the letter from Thomas Roy explaining that there's no extraordinary species and no problem with us going into the general area. Thank you. That's the letter from Cox Taylor that is in my DP amendment, but it was removed from the paperwork that you guys got, so I don't understand why that happened. But this is the foundation of really what we're doing and why we're doing it, because the zoning is so complex and in a lot of ways not legally binding that we were told we had to rezone the property in order to move forward. So we said, sure. We've submitted the application, we had the meeting, and then we ran into this. So I could go through the nuances of why there is the issue. I don't know if council wants me to. No. Anyways, the letter, it's not in the package, but it clearly states that the zoning is cumbersome and it says should I go on with the zoning? Can I talk to you guys, or am I only allowed to speak?
Well, why don't we see if there's any questions, and then that way we can just get, council
right.
can get the information that it wants to
Okay,
move
I've
forward.
highlighted a few things on my computer here in the letter that you may want to hear, but thank you all.
We can maybe just leave it at that for
Okay,
now.
very good.
My understanding, though, from your presentation so far is that you're at this point you want to continue on work. Is
Yes,
that it?
correct.
And then that you've assembled a rezoning application that's coming forward to council.
Yes, it's been submitted a week and a half ago.
Okay.
The DP amendment was submitted 3 weeks ago, if we have to wait until September, the weather window, I mean, the amount of problems that it'll cause is quite spectacular. I mean, you'll have the water running down the hillside with nothing to stop it into the neighbor's yard.
Okay, so you were looking to get on with this work to protect your site, and then in the meantime, we can see about scheduling a special meeting to deal with, because that was one thing I mentioned to you at the last regular council when you spoke just about the council schedule, is that when we see business coming forward, council would like to continue to move things along, provided we achieve quorum. You can see even today we're missing 2 people. So that's where we can just look at, see what August looks like. So in the meantime, though, I'll field some queries from council so we can get going on this. Councillor Casper, please.
Yeah. Through you, Your Worship. So my question is this, just picking up on what the Mayor said, that what you're asking is that we allow you to carry on work, and that you've committed to doing the rezoning application to downzone the property, and then you would be doing all that at your own risk, correct? And so you're not waiving or asking us to waive anything from our end. You just want to carry on work, and then whatever happens, correct?
Yes.
So that you can carry on for the next 2 months, because I think even in the best of times, if we had 2 council meetings a month, you'd probably be lucky to have the property rezoned in 2 months. At least that's what I think anyway. So what you're after is for us to grant the relief from the stop work order to allow you to continue based on the submissions you've made tonight and what you submitted in your rezoning. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, other questions from councillors? Councillor Pearson?
Not a lot of audience here, but everyone knows I'm not a favor of CDE zones. And again, here we are, you're looking for an amendment. It seems counterintuitive that you're building less density. We've already granted more density, and then we've got to come back for less density when all the public hearings probably would have been concerned in the past about maximum density. So if you're building less, it seems to me almost, like I say, counterintuitive in my pragmatic brain to be coming back for less density. But anyways, okay, I got the point now, I think, so I'll listen to other councillors for questions. Thank you. Yep, through the chair, sorry.
Mr. Volk, I need you to turn on the microphone and direct your comments to me, please.
You're through the mayor, if I may answer. Yeah, that's a very good point. And so the reason for this strip of park in the future that was contemplated was a buffer between a multifamily zone and a single-family zone. There's no more multifamily zone. So that's a large component of this that needs to be considered. The other thing is about the density, and that's why the Cox-Taylor letter is important to read, is because the main thrust of it says the fact that the way that this zoning is built is as soon as you go to a certain density, as soon as you go over a line, all of a sudden you've triggered maximum density, even if you want one more unit. And it doesn't make any sense. And they never contemplated, when the zoning was originally made, they never contemplated somebody going under the base density.
Councillor Parkinson.
Through you, Your Worship, we received the information sheet just this evening, and it says that the reason why they're unable to open up the application and to follow through with it. So I'm just wondering if these two items that staff have requested are applicable to this.
This was a letter that was sent by our staff on July the 19th.
It went to you.
Acknowledging the rezoning application, and they were looking for two items: owner's authorization in writing from the owners of 7,000 Melrick Place, and then application fees in the amount of 10,000. And so and then it says see Schedule A. And then in the meantime, preparing updates to the following studies: an updated traffic impact assessment to reflect the current rezoning proposal, and an updated biophysical report with updated riparian area report to reflect the current proposal. And that's due to the impact of Ellis Stream. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, that's right. We did pay the fees, by the way.
Okay, so you've submitted the fees, and in terms of the biophysical, is that Cascadia that you're referring to?
I talked to him today about getting that done, so I'm perfectly thrilled with subject to having a suitable report from Cascadia.
The traffic impact one is
it seems
interesting to me because it's less houses, so you could argue that there would be less traffic. So.
My first reaction was, why in the hell would you? But when you read the crazy zoning and you realize that you have to rebuild intersections in Souk based on traffic counts, that will never happen because, so actually the traffic study in a weird way is a good thing because we pull covenants off title with the new traffic study.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So the way that zoning is built is if you go for maximum density, suddenly you have to do more traffic studies.
Right.
And based on, and then you have to be counting cars at Otter Point and Souk Roads, for example, and potentially put in turning lanes and things to handle the flood of cars coming from Viewpoint Estates. So obviously that won't happen now. If traffic study will prove it, they'll recommend pulling the covenants off.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. Okay, the other piece is the owner's authorization?
We have owner's authorization. I don't have Clark's signature for their piece of land yet.
Okay.
So we're scurrying to just close we have an unconditional offer
Okay.
And we just, either they'll sign the paper or they won't, and if they don't, we'll just buy it, and we're in the middle of closing right now.
I see, okay. So all of these pieces are in, you have your rezoning application and things in, and then you have these other things coming to satisfy
Correct, and
this.
And potentially you could say, well, geez, what if you never buy the place, and what if, none of this is on Clark's property. So we would then
Right.
just rezone our 40 odd acres and not their extra 5. They
Got it,
give us
okay.
access to the mountains.
Right, okay, so that makes sense. So that's where you have that in the works, and then in the meantime, though, to continue on dealing with the park piece, it's getting the stop work lifted.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions, or we have just a quick query from staff, please?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Since I'm the only staff here, I just would like to mention that we do have processes in place, and so I would assume that there is a reason why there was a stop work order set. Without that information going forward, I think that maybe your best option would be having a report come back to you regarding this, because there is liability that could take place if something is not set in its proper place, right? Just a legal opinion, I guess.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. We have the reasoning for the stop work, Mr. Volk?
Yes, and
Okay.
all the requested documents have been supplied. I mean, they which letter? Oh, the Cox Tyler letter that was taken out. Yeah, I don't know.
15,000.
50. No, we paid the
$50,000
50. I brought that in like the next day.
Okay. Councillor Pearson?
Given what I've heard tonight and the assurance from the homeowner and the conversation with Councillor Casper, I'd like to make a motion that we lift the stop work order based on the conditions, and that the owner is aware that he's operating at his own peril going forward, and as long as he meets the conditions. And I'd make a motion to that effect.
Okay, so that's seconded. So Councillor Pearson has moved that we lift the stop work order and that the developer can continue at his own peril. Okay, and we look.
He understands the conditions of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that essentially was your motion, that we lift the stop work order and the developer proceed at his own peril. Okay, that's been seconded by Councillor Casper. To Councillor Loggins on the motion now, please.
It seems to me like everything's going forward. So it's a bit confusing to me as to why we're discussing it, I suppose. And I just, in terms of process, if we make this motion now, they can start work tomorrow, I assume. If we don't, they start work the next day? Or is it that we have to go through the whole... Okay, gotcha.
So and maybe anyone can correct me if I'm wrong here. My understanding is that the stop work was put on until the property is rezoned?
Sort of, yes. I mean, we went into an area that by the current zoning and current DP is a non-disturbance area, and we just...
Because it's park.
Well, it's not park, it's just our land that's not been dedicated.
A buffer.
It's a buffer zone, and nor would it have been dedicated as park. There was no park there. But now when we're done and we build it with terraces and you can go up the stairs and we're going to be a viewing platform at the top, the subdivision, we've designed an entire trails network around it. It's going to be quite something when we're done.
So it's not park, it's a green buffer.
Right, that's the idea. That was what it was supposed to be. It was an amenity. So is it parkland or not? I don't even really know.
Okay, but that's where it's probably a riparian, I'm guessing now, it's probably a riparian area because of what I saw in the staff report, just it's needed for Ella Creek, and that's why they're asking for the biologist or the agroecologist to go in and do a summary.
Our plan
Which we're
is to
gonna get.
dedicate it as park.
Okay. Okay.
Through
Councillor
your
Parkinson?
worship, but we will be receiving all this information that's requested, correct?
Yes.
Yes, you already have, actually.
That's what I'm hearing from the applicant is that he's working on obtaining the in writing owner's authorization from 7,000 Melrick. Application fees of the 10,000 and some have been submitted. The traffic impact assessment is in the works, as well as the biophysical report. Those were the outstanding things, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so all those will come then, and then once staff gets this, then they can complete the rezoning application, and then we can look for a date for that to be scheduled.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Loggins, then Casper, please.
So just to follow up on what I was saying, I can see staff trying to figure out wording for the motion here, and I think staff is doing an excellent job at that because well, we went with peril. I guess where I was coming from in terms of why are we talking about this is the whole at his own peril piece. I'm not quite sure I agree with that wording in terms of where the process is going. It would be nice to kind of see the motion read to the effect that these will be completed, if that makes sense.
Okay, that could be, just the way I viewed that was that because we don't have staff to answer back to this, should there be, and our corporate officer flagged concern that any exposure that the district may have, the developer would have to wear the lot. So if we're missing something, it would be upon the developer to make right, in addition to submitting the necessary things. I agree, kind of peril sounds kind of dooms. It's just.
This looks a little better.
I use that language all the time when I'm negotiating and using memorandums of understanding or agreements. So you proceed at your own peril. So that means you understand that there's some risks to it.
And I agree.
That's all. It's
Sorry,
common.
just to follow up with my comment on that. It's not that I disagree with the language. I just kind of want a bookend to it. I want that to be bookended by not a date, but by an action, if that makes sense.
So staff have provided some wordsmithing here. So it basically says that council approved lifting the stop work order to allow the developer to proceed with the Viewpoint Estates project as long as the developer is in compliance with district policies and application requirements.
If I might just say that could theoretically be misinterpreted to say they are allowed to work on the site.
Mr. Volk, sorry, we have a live motion, so I can't have you speak at this moment, but thank you. Just bear with us. Councillor Pearson, you proposed the motion.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like we're trying to soften the words out. No. Okay. Yeah. So I prefer the word that the developer proceed at his own peril. Yep. So that he's aware that there's some things we're saying, we're giving him the go ahead to work on his project, get it going, but he's proceeding at his own peril, so that he understands fully, or the developers fully understand is that, they're responsible. Yep. We're giving them the keys to the car, so they got to drive it.
Okay.
I agree.
So we'll go back to the original language, and that the developer proceeds at his own peril, and that the developer is aware that he is proceeding at his own peril. Period. Okay, so that's the original motion. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, so
we have too many microphones. There.
So the comfort that the district has is, first of all, if all of the conditions are met for the new zoning, then there's a problem for the developer. If all the conditions aren't met with the new zoning, then any preliminary layout approval or subdivision approval won't occur. I think the applicant fully understands all those conditions, and that's why I'm comforted by going through this process, because first of all, none of the land's been dedicated to us, and as stated, the buffer was created on the basis of single-family development here and multifamily here. So that's why there was this buffer. So that's not clearly the case anymore. And so I don't have a problem with what's occurring. Plus, there is provisions in what the staff have said that if there's something that needs to be remediated, it will in fact get remediated. And the developer is committed to do that at the meeting tonight. So I think most of the bases, if not all, are covered. And that's not prejudging us downzoning the property, which I don't think anybody would have a problem with, because it's usually concerns happen when you upzone land as opposed to downzone. So I'm supporting this motion as stands.
Okay, no, that's fine. We do need to move forward into any rezone with an open mind. Some may concern that with the need for affordable housing and the like, where are we going to fit everybody? Just saying, we need to always proceed with an open mind. So thank you for that. Anything further from members of council on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Are you opposed, Councillor Parkinson? She's in favor. Okay, we're good. All right, thank you, Mr. Volk. We will see you when your application has been completed and at rezone, so sometime soon, I suspect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to our new business item. Councillor Parkinson, you put forward, I think, requesting a update on Lot A. At our last meeting, we had requested staff to engage folks from Corrections Canada to look at doing some fire smart work in Lot A to clear out any low-hanging shrubbery or dry shrubs or any potential fire hazard and so forth. And go ahead.
Through your worship, I was asked to go for a walkabout inside Lot A with neighbors that live on the property line, basically, and one of the members from the fire department went with us. So there are numerous trails inside the park, too many to count. There are so many fire pits in the park, where I counted 8 of them, and there's probably more because we didn't go down every path. There is a building that was for the septic system for Western Foods, and there's a number of people living in it. There's a bed in there, there's furniture in there, whatever. They have an area where they sit, and they have when we were there, they had a fire pit made up with new pieces of wood to start a fire. So in the last 2 weeks, I guess, we've had 6 fires in there. And I have no doubt that we will be having more in there from what I've seen. The amount of garbage in there is atrocious. We have asked for signage to go up around the lot, stating that it's private property, but there's no signage up yet. I took a drive around, so it's not there. I would like to see, you've all seen what the building looks like where they're living. I would like to see, it's not really a building, whatever it is. I would like that removed so that no one can be living there. And I would also like to see that the branches be cut so that it's a clear view through, so that you know what's going on there. Because it's quite dangerous for the fire department. And the staff sergeant said that he's been in there numerous times on different calls. There's needles there. There's so much garbage. So I think that rather than wait, because it's July still, so it's still quite hot out, I would like to see the work done immediately and not wait. And let's get it cleared up. My other question was, do we have any idea when the library is going to actually start on their property? So that portion would be cleaned by them anyhow, right? So from my understanding, they were supposed to have the library completed next year. So I would assume that they would be starting work sometime soon. Thank you.
Okay, I have no idea what the libraries, our trustee isn't here this evening, so I don't know. I haven't received any update on the library at all since we last spoke about it. Maybe for the staff present, sorry to put you on this hot spot here, but would either of you know sort of how quickly anyone can get into Lot A and do the clear out according to the motion from July 10th? Okay, I suspect that I'm not sure. It's not a park, it's just a vacant parcel of land with no approved structures on it. Councillor Pearson?
Well, 2 things. Thank you, Councillor Parkinson, for taking time to go in there and look at it. I think good report and good pictures, and it just reiterates, I think, what we were all thinking. I mean, I walked through there a little while ago when we first bought it, and it sounds like it's degraded since then. But I'm assuming that we've got a liability with any kind of structure where people are living in, and people falling off the roof or whatever they may be doing. So I guess we need to make a motion to direct staff to start deconstruction and hauling that away. I mean, I don't think we have any choice. I think that needs to be swept out of there. So I don't know how we do that. Do we need an RFP to do it?
Well, I think it depended. I'm just trying to go from memory now as to what our last motion was. I know that we wanted to engage Corrections Canada if that was in fact available, and then I think we said if you need to contract this out to get on it, and then we talked about the emergency or potential emergent need to address the work. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, we also have within our budget provisions for a contractor to go in and deal with dangerous tree situations. So that's tree cutting services. And we do have our own staff now, which, I think they're picking garbage up in places. I don't know if they can do this in a safe way. So I think that there's probably some provisions, within our budget that could accommodate any action. I raised it originally because I thought, I just don't want to see a fire. And I don't think any of us do, right? But I think I want to thank Councillor Parkinson for actually bringing the larger concern that it's a huge issue. And, I don't know if by doing this is going to push people somewhere else and create another problem, but that's not the point, because if we, the pictures we saw, there's a fire ready to burn, right? And I know that if that happened and if it spread, well, then we'd be in serious trouble. So.
Well, we've attended, as Councillor Parkinson said, up to 6, and then I don't know how many police incidents so far this year, and then your concern was raised about fencing it as some way to protect it from being on fire, because we know that the crew had been in there just before the July 10th meeting. I don't recall the exact wording of that motion, but I think it's the case. Go ahead, just so that we can clarify what it is.
Yeah, since we don't have the minutes, Your Worship, I'll just read out the motion. It says that Council directs staff to post a no trespassing signage on the district property known as Lot A, and to clear accumulated debris, garbage, and brush from Lot A, and further that funding come from the CAO contingency fund, and further that volunteer labor be supported and used at staff discretion.
Okay, so it's pretty clear. So I guess what I'm looking for is some way to motivate the motion. Councillor Parkinson, please.
I still have a problem with the building where they're living in.
Yes, so we can add that.
That has to be added to this, because that is a severe problem, and it's very close to the people who live on Anna Marie Road. And the people that are living on that road have a real concern, because the 2 fires were very close to their property line, and if a spark goes right over there, their place is gone.
Okay,
so they are very upset. So something has to be done with this.
Okay, so how about we have a motion here that Council directs staff to remove the building located on district property known as Lot A. Someone, would you like to move that? Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Maybe direct staff to remove the add an 8 as soon as possible. Like, let's move it immediately, known as Lot. Yeah. Immediately. Okay, are we okay with that? All right. Any discussion on this leaving? Councillor Pearson?
Just that, we have to be mindful of the dollar, so that I still think you can do a fast turnaround on an RFP to our local contractors. I mean, there's probably only 2 or 3 that could handle a job with that, because that's a concrete base. Yeah. It has to be done by an excavator or something broken up. So okay. I still think that a short turnaround RFP would be prudent.
Okay. To our corporate officer?
The only other thing that might be needed to be added here, thinking from the CFO's perspective, is what fund it will be coming from. So I guess there would be coming from the fund that is already put aside for the. Okay.
I suspect from that operating contingency. Councillor Casper.
I'll suggest a friendly amendment in accordance with district purchasing policies.
Okay,
The district purchasing policies.
okay, Councillor, are you okay with that amendment, Councillor Parkinson and Pearson? Okay, back to Councillor Parkinson.
Should we have the RFP in there?
Well, that'll
Or should
fall
that be-
under,
It is now.
it is with the purchasing
okay.
policy. Okay. And that funding come from the CAO contingency. Good. Okay. Good for everyone? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. That's unanimous. Just looking to staff, in terms of getting on with this, do you need a motion, like just from the July 10th motion that was carried, how soon can we get moving on this? I know that the staff workload is very busy, but just given the dryness in what's occurring in the lot, there is a sense of urgency for this. So do you need a motion, or can we just have you...
No, Your Worship, I think we can just leave it as is. It's already been assigned, so
Okay.
I'm sure they are working on it, and we'll just make sure that we reiterate that it was mentioned again tonight.
Okay, and then perhaps then when any sort of RFP or any activity occur or signage go up, if possible, please send out a general email to council, so then Councillor Parkinson can take it to the neighbors, or whoever has expressed any concern. We can say, okay, further to the motion being passed, here are the steps that are being taken, so that we can do some outreach there as well. I think that's important. That's very good. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Parkinson, for venturing down those paths and trailways. Yeah, I'm glad you weren't alone. Okay, we've called the question on this, right? Yep. Okay. So then that moves us to item 9. It's a motion to close the meeting to the public, and that this meeting be closed to the public under Section 91A and K of the Community Charter as it pertains to personal information about an identifiable individual being considered for a position appointed by the municipality, as well as negotiations and related discussions. Moved by Councillor Loggins and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, so a motion to, I guess, adjourn the open portion of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Loggins. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.